The previous guest writes the first question. It's a mystery to us both, so have at it.
All right. What is your greatest regret during your time in service, and what, if any time, have you done to rectify that? So, great question. I actually feel like my time in service was the best time of my life. I joined the military kind of with really crazy circumstances. I didn't speak any English. I come from Eastern Europe, Lithuania. And joining the military, I didn't have high expectations. It was just more an opportunity. I took the risk. I went in. And I honestly just had such an incredible time. But I also feel like everything that I did in the military was the reason why I had such a great time in service. Anytime they needed volunteers, I would raise my hand. I would always, I honestly, when I just got into the military and people would be like, we need volunteers. And I didn't speak any English. My English was very, very minimal, right? So I didn't know what they're asking for. So I was just like, yeah, sure. Like, pick me, thinking it's going to be something cool. And end up being, go scrub toilets or go shred papers kind of thing. And so I think because I made those decisions to constantly volunteer, to be curious, to be proactive, talk to people, ask if I wanted for something, if I wanted to learn something different. I always asked. So I was never shy about give me everything, soak everything in. And because of that, I feel like I don't really have any regrets. The only regret is the fact that my military career was cut short due to the circumstances and medical conditions. But other than that, I feel like it was an amazing time. I love the military.
Along those lines, though, was there ever a point where did you ever perceive it of you were taken advantage of because you're so willing to volunteer?
Yes and no. In the way, at first people would kind of giggle at me. They're like, 150 of us standing information. They'll say we need volunteers, and
because you didn't read the first page of the manual and said,
no,
don't volunteer.
Right? No, you get voluntold, right? Usually, so no. For me, it was always I don't even know what they want, but sure. And the reason I always volunteered because I wanted to learn. There's so many things that I didn't know. I come from a different country. I didn't speak really good English. I didn't know the system. I didn't know a lot of things, even basic little things, right? Like what restaurants are cool and what shows are people watching. All that stuff was really unknown to me. So any opportunity to go in and learn, even while I'm scrubbing those toilets or shredding the paper. And what I've noticed throughout the time as I was volunteering and doing these things, later, higher up and people in charge would be like, we want Sandra to be on color guard. We want Sandra to go to this awesome trip and do this opportunity. We want Sandra to help us and be the personal security for commander, command sergeant major. So because I volunteered, and it only took me a couple times to realize, oh, shoot, I'm just volunteering for crappy duties. But then that turned out to be amazing opportunities that came my way because I showed my worth. I volunteered. I was there when they needed me. And then whenever the cool opportunity came around, my name was on top of the list. So it turned out, for the benefit for me.
But that is the best big picture scenario that a lot of people often overlook. They get so drawn into just the single small aspect. I'm not going to volunteer. I don't want to do that garbage job, whatever it is. But you don't realize that, okay, maybe you take the bullshit assignment right now. It may not be fun. It may not be interesting. But somebody senior to you is at least noticing that you didn't, hey, what do you need me to do, boss? I'll go do it. Because then down the road, when they're looking for somebody for a certain position, they want those people who are going to be positive. Hey, what do you need me to do? So, but a lot of times we ourselves, we get so deep into that, I don't want to do the garbage stuff. Yeah. But when it comes time for the fun stuff, hey, you didn't raise your hand for the garbage stuff.
And that's what I would hear from a lot of my colleagues and, battle buddies is like, oh, how do you get picked to go with command sergeant major to France and do this event and do that event? It's I'm like, I don't know. It's just because whenever he needed me or, not necessarily command sergeant major, but anyone in my chain of command, whenever they needed me, I took that step and I said, hey, whatever it is, I'll help out. I don't get paid extra. The military, we do what we're told. But at the same time, when I did go and do it, I didn't just kind of half-assed in a way, right? Everything that I did, whether it was shredding papers, whether it was cleaning toilets, like I did it with pride in a way that like I will shred these papers and I will clean up my space afterwards and I'm not going to leave a mess. And that was my way of showing, here's how I work, here's how I do everything in life. It doesn't matter if it's shredding papers, writing op orders, or, doing something more important. It was just my way of getting in and showing my worth, my work, and then people know that they can trust me when it was a little bit more important duties and something cooler than just shredding papers. Yeah.
We're definitely going to get into your childhood because I'm definitely interested in that aspect of your story and what brought you here. But the first question I want to ask is, do you know where that work ethic came from?
Definitely my childhood. Definitely growing up in Lithuania. Lithuania was part of USSR when I was born. So things were very, very different in a way that, like, even in schools, it was very strict. You had to try really, really hard to be perfect. And even when you were perfect, you're still not perfect enough. You can do better. So it was like that really strict kind of upraising. And then I worked a lot as a kid. I always had to help my mom, help my dad. Like, as a family, we were really poor. We had to grow our food. We had to can our food. We had to, do everything and survive together. So from the young age, I've always been, it's not just about me. It's not about what I want when I want it. It was more about how can we as a family, as a community, come together and help each other and work together. And I literally, and we can get into that a little bit more. I lived in a dorm setting type of apartments. So when I was born in 1984. Lithuania was occupied by USSR by that time. And we lived in a dorm. So it was literally like imagine barracks, just a little bit rougher conditions. So we didn't have individual showers. We didn't have individual toilets or kitchens. We literally just each family had a little room, probably just, tiny little, like a studio kind of room. And we had one kitchen at the end of the hallway and one shower at the end of the hallway. And we had to share. And it was
for how many families?
About 10 families per hallway, and each hallway had, their own shower and kitchen.
Oh, okay.
But it was one of those things, you always kind of work as a community. You do things like if you go to the kitchen and you use that kitchen, you make sure you leave it clean. You make sure that you think about others, right? So it's never been just about me. And I think that work ethic kind of bled into, my career in the military and beyond, right? So just that kind of upbringing, I always worked hard, always try to do good. But also I think moving to United States. Coming to United States almost felt like I kind of lost everything that I not necessarily knew or was good at, but I had to start all over again because the language barrier, the culture barrier. So I had to constantly, in a way, prove myself and keep up with everything because, my English wasn't good enough or I didn't know certain things. I still remember when we moved to New York, we would get a lot of mail and I was just like, oh, wow, like who are these people writing us? And I would open this mail and read every line. And then not until like 6 months later, I was like, oh, these are letters from the bank, like promoting credit cards, But in Lithuania, you don't get mail unless some neighbor or somebody writes you a letter. So there was a lot of things that I had to learn. And because of that, I constantly was feeling like I need to be on my A game. I need to learn. I need to be curious. I need to take extra time to absorb all the information and work extra hard.
Experiencing that, and I'll call it a total change of freedoms. Once you got here, was it, I kind of almost use the analogy of a young kid and there's a buffet of candies or something where it's just, you can't control yourself because there's just some. Did you find a struggle almost in all of the freedom and availability of everything to you?
Absolutely. It was, just coming from Lithuania, and in Lithuania where we lived it was one of the bigger cities, but it wasn't like a capital city. It was like a smaller city. And then we moved to New York, Brooklyn, New York. So just getting off the plane and like, driving down the streets and like seeing like everything, new language, new culture, different backgrounds of people. Like I had no idea. Like to me, it was everything was just like you said. It was like a candy shop. It's like, oh my gosh, people look different, and these are the people that I used to watch on like J Lo videos. And to me, I was just like, oh man, now I'm in Brooklyn, Jenny from the block kind of thing. So it was cool, but it was very overwhelming and very scary at the same time. And I have a lot of stories, even being in Brooklyn and New York, like certain things that I had to learn that for most people would probably be just like a normal day. But for me, it's just like if a stranger's talking to you, like if I don't speak English, like I really had to watch out of like, who am I interacting with? Are they trying to take advantage of me? Like I was young. I was just barely 18. I turned 18 about 3 months later after I moved. So it was just that time, as a teenager, like still kind of figuring out myself and then being thrown into a completely different world. It was very, very challenging. And I didn't have friends. That was really hard. But at the same time, I feel like the opportunities were there, right? I started my real jobs. And when I say real, like I was making dumplings in the basement of the Russian restaurant. I was babysitter. I was working in Coney Island. So all the jobs were, very much kind of lower entry level jobs. But to me, there were like opportunities and new jobs and things that I haven't gotten a chance to do back in Lithuania. So it was a land of opportunities. It was a land of new life, but at the same time, it was really scary, and it took me a little bit of time to kind of navigate that.
Well, and historically, the immigrants who've come to this country, New York being a huge melting pot. My family came through New York from Italy. I know the little bit that I know of New York is in Brooklyn. There is a heavy Russian area. I believe they call it Little Odessa.
I think so. I believe so.
This may sound like the rhetorical question, but did your family settle in that area because of the like community?
Absolutely. Yeah. We were in Coney Island, which Coney Island, Brighton Beach is all like, we joke now, it's like a part of New York that's pretty much like former Soviet Union now, because there's so many people that like our family that moved, throughout the years. But then there's certain things that they do in there now, like certain stores and certain things, like, you go there and it kind of reminds you back of the Soviet Union times. But we did move there. My mom had a friend that lived in Brooklyn, so that was another reason why we're there. But to your point, most of the people that moved usually try to find a neighborhood or a place where you can find similar food. People speak your language. You have schools, doctors, that kind of stuff that can speak your language and understand. But yeah, that's where we lived. I did have to finish a high school in Brooklyn, and then I did have to take a night classes at a different school, which was like in a way different neighborhood. And that's when I had to take like a couple buses and go to that different neighborhood. And that school was actually for people that were falling behind in school. So a lot of troublemakers and, kids that weren't studying really well. And I was there because I just need to catch up on history and other things to keep up with, what I've missed of like American history and everything else. But that was a different experience, because then I did have to go outside of my comfort zone in a little Russian bubble or Eastern European bubble into like neighborhoods where it was a lot of Black kids or Hispanic kids. And to me, it was cool. I actually really enjoyed it. I didn't feel like I didn't belong or anything like that, but it was a cool experience. It was different.
Excuse my ignorance. When did Lithuania come under Soviet Union control?
In 1940s, when it became part of USSR. Yeah.
So were your parents old enough to have gone from being Lithuanian non-USSR, or were they also their entire life?
Yeah, so their entire life. My mom was born under USSR, and I guess my grandparents kind of saw a little bit of both. But my grandparents actually were sent away to Kazakhstan during the USSR because they were sending people off. And that's one thing that's still in our family. Like, I think because of that mentality growing up under USSR, you don't challenge things, you don't question things, you don't talk about stuff, even within the family, to protect your family. And so my grandparents were sent away to Kazakhstan, I believe, in 1950s. And that's when my mom was born. She was born there in 1961, and then they all returned back to Lithuania. But it was so my mom pretty much, most of her life she grew up under USSR, which also I think has a lot to do with how we were raised. Because I'm still working through the things to where like, oh yeah, I'm going to be on a podcast, talk about my story and myself. In my family, it's not common. Like people
No
don't.
way in hell you would
Yeah,
share that information.
people don't share. People don't talk, and not because we're afraid now. It's just that mentality that lingered throughout the years and how you were raised, and so you kind of continue like do things in silence, don't talk about it, like don't share too much, don't tell everybody of what you're about or what if you're creating a company, if you're working on a project, or if you're doing something, it's like you got to do in a silence. But I'm trying to break away from that shell and be a little bit more kind of outspoken and share my story a little more.
And the reason for that first question is because in my mind, I was thinking, okay, you grew up under communist control. That was all you knew. Mm-hmm. But I was wondering if your parents had ever experienced non-communist control and how that would have impacted you growing up. But it sounds like they grew up under communist regime also, so it was just normal for them.
Yeah.
Going back to you as a young child, first thing, any brothers or sisters?
Younger sister.
Back in those dorm column apartments, whatever you want to, what was life like for you? Did you understand the oppressiveness of the communist regime, so to speak? Or was it just like, did your parents do a really good job of just kind of shielding you like, hey, you're just a normal kid, this is just where we live?
Yeah, I think it was normal at a time. The only time I maybe noticed it was when Lithuania became independent in 1990s, early 1990. That's when I started realizing, oh, that life before, like, that's not, how most other countries live, because then we get a little bit more Western TV, right, and we get to see different shows. But growing up, it felt normal. And honestly, like, I remember things like having little tickets and going to the store to pick up milk for, our family or bread. And then you could get to the store and they're like, well, we don't have any more milk. We only have this kind of bread. Do you want it? Not, come back tomorrow kind of thing. So it's really interesting. Like even, in schools, we all wore the brown uniforms and it was really strict. I still remember, you're sitting at a table like this. If you hunch a little bit, like teacher will come through and smack you with the ruler. So it was different. And then, like I said, we grew all of our food. We worked a lot. We didn't have a lot of money. So it was different, but I didn't know that. Like, I just thought that's how my life. And I honestly, I feel like I had a really good life because my parents were really good at still making sure we go, during the summer, we go by the lake, we go to the beach, we go do some fun stuff. So I feel like I had a really good childhood. It's just, I do, ever since we became independent and kind of saw like a little bit of the other side, like I was like, oh man, the people that are growing up now, the young people, like they have such good lives. Like I had to work out in the field, picking weeds for like acres and acres and do just a lot of stuff as a young child that, I would have rather been playing around and hanging out with my friends. But I also feel like all those hardships helped me to become who I am today.
Mom and dad both worked?
Both worked. My mom worked with the insurance company, so and I believe she worked in some kind of, I don't want to say it's a factory, but under the Soviet Union, she worked in one place for many, many years. And then when we became independent, she started working for the insurance company. And my dad was kind of all over the place. He was more, I would say, entrepreneurship in a way, like especially after the Lithuania became independent, he was always trying to find little gigs here and there, and he traveled a lot. And then eventually my parents got divorced and he moved away. And so it was just my younger sister and my mom and myself.
The move to the States, do you remember if, as soon as Lithuania regained its independence, were your mom or dad immediately talking about leaving, even not just necessarily Lithuania, Eastern Europe, but coming to the States? Or did that kind of come later?
So it came later. So when we became independent in 1990, we actually ended up purchasing a really nice apartment. We moved away from the dorm setting.
This October 28th and 29th, the Military Officers Association of America is bringing together 3,000 voices: military leaders, warfighters, veterans, and families at National Harbor in Maryland for their inaugural conference, Total Force Plus. This isn't just another military conference. It's a mission to advance solutions for our military and veteran community, including leadership development, quality of life, military transition, and maximizing the veterans' experience. It's all on the table. This is where the next generation of military solutions will be tackled, at the first and only military conference where people outrank everything. And because the mission is so important, MOA is making attendance free for those who are currently serving, the spouses of those currently serving, and all federal employees within the DoD and VA. Secure your seat now, as tickets are limited and offered on a first-come, first-served basis. Visit TotalForcePlus.org to see if you qualify for your free ticket and to register for the conference.
And then in late 1990s, the whole diversity green card lottery came about, and everyone and their mama was applying for it. Like literally every neighbor, people were applying for multiple years in a row because it was really hard to get. And
what benefit would that have given you?
So the green card lottery is what people, especially from like certain countries that were suppressed or certain countries that don't have a lot of immigration, United States offered the green card lottery to come to the United States and live as a resident, right? So my mom applied one time. Somebody encouraged her to apply. She was going through the divorce, and like I said, some people have applied. Like even now, when I go back to Lithuania, some people will be like, "I've been applying for 20 years and I still haven't gotten it." It's like I'm keep dreaming about United States. My mom applied one time, and they literally and we got it, and it's a crazy story because I still remember that morning. My sister and my mom used to work 24-hour shifts on the border of Lithuania with the insurance. So she would leave in the morning and come back the next morning. And I remember that one day when my mom was at work, we get this huge envelope. And like I said, we don't get mail in Lithuania unless somebody that you know writes you. And the huge envelope is addressed to us, but it's all in English, something from the United States. So I called my mom and I was like, there's this really big envelope in mail. Like, I have no idea what it is. I don't know who's it from. It doesn't even say anything in Lithuanian. It's like in English, I think. And so my mom automatically knew, but she didn't say anything. And the next morning she comes home, and my sister and I used to watch Saved by the Bell. That was our show. And that's when we dreamt. We were like, America, like, I'm going to go to US. I'm going to have my, own high school locker. I'm going to decorate it in different posters. Like, that was my dream. That's how I imagined United States. And then, Saved by the Bell, you get all these people that are different backgrounds. Everybody looks different. So to me, it was just so exciting. But so we used to watch that show religiously every weekend.
Have you since gone back and watched it in English in its natural form, and does it seem weird to you?
A little bit, yeah, and it is, yeah. I haven't watched a lot, but like bits and pieces of it, yeah, and I'm like, but
that's not her voice.
Yeah, but I loved it. And so next morning, my mom comes home and she makes herself some coffee and she opens the letter and she looks at it, and then next thing she walks into the room where my sister and I are watching Saved by the Bell. And she goes, are you ready to go to the United States? And my sister and I were like, what? Like, is this for real? So we're like jumping up and down in bed. We were like super excited. And that was really just an opportunity. And many people do say, like, there's a saying in a lot of Eastern countries and probably many countries around the world, if you win the diversity green card lottery or the great opportunity to move to the United States, it is like winning $500,000. And the saying is like, this is your $500,000. Now you got to go to the United States, and it's up to you to make the other half. So then, you can be that dream millionaire or whatever. But yeah, that was kind of the reason how the whole moving to the United States came about. We didn't plan. I don't think it was necessarily, it was like a distant dream that, like I said, we watched shows and videos and especially music videos. And that was just kind of in the back of our heads, like, how cool would it be? But not until that letter arrived that we're like, okay, oh shit, it's happening. We're going. Yeah.
And you said you were 17 when you came? Almost 18?
Almost 18. So I was 17 when we moved in the summer, and then I turned 18 in September.
And how long from when your mom said, hey, do you want to go to America and actually moving?
So I want to say about a year for my mom to move because it's a long process. So you have to, at that time, we didn't have a U.S. embassy in Lithuania. The closest one was in Poland. So I had to gather a lot of paperwork. You have to get the whole green card thing is not like you get a green card and you just move. Like you have to verify that you're going to have sponsors in the United States that will help you find jobs and, help you get a place to live. If something were to happen, that they're going to sponsor you. They also wanted to see, like, do you have savings? So we had to borrow money from people to kind of prove that, yeah, we're not coming empty handed. We had to get a bunch of vaccines. So there's just, translate all the documents from our high schools, from mom's work and different stuff. So there was a long, like about a year process for us to get through all the paperwork, go to Poland, go to the embassy there for a couple of interviews. And then once we finished with all that process, then my mom moved first. So she moved in 2001. I want to say 2001. And she moved to New York City or Brooklyn, New York. And that was right when 9/11 happened, right? So that was kind of a crazy moment. We were sitting at home in Lithuania trying to call mom. Mom's not answering, all the phones are down. But she moved first. She actually got a job with as a kind of elderly caregiver, but live in. So she lived with a lady and took care of a lady for about a year to just save up money because, then you have no expenses. You don't have to pay for the apartment. So she saved up money and then a year later, well, we came for a quick in processing and then we flew back to Lithuania and we lived with our mom's sister, our aunt. And then a year later, we actually moved to the United States because it took her a year to kind of settle in, find an apartment, save up some money, and, do all the other paperwork, get us registered for schools and figure it out, that process. So it was a little while.
As a 17-year-old going through that whole process, do you ever remember anybody from, I'll say, the Lithuanian government or any Eastern European aspect of it trying to not necessarily overtly prevent it from happening, but put stumbling blocks in the way? Or were they very positive to the experience? Hey, you want to go to the States? Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I don't think there were any roadblocks. Not that I know. Maybe my mom would remember it a little bit better. But honestly, like ever since the USSR became independent, it was just kind of like that. The gates were open. People were moving to Western Europe. A lot of people were moving to England, to Germany. United States obviously is a little bit harder to get to, so that's why a lot of people, the only way you can go there is if you win a green card or somehow you get a visa. But I wouldn't say that there were roadblocks from the Lithuanian government. It was pretty smooth. It was more of the paperwork on the United States to really prove and show that you're gonna come here and be a valuable citizen.
You and your sister came in 2002.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Going back to prior to getting that green card, what did you think was going to be your adult life? And then how quickly did your plans or vision for your future change once you got here?
Oh, that's such a good question. I always say, like, growing up in that USSR mindset, like, I never dreamt to be like a doctor or a lawyer or own a company. Like, that was never even in my picture because my parents weren't doctors, my parents weren't lawyers, and usually that's how it went. Any of my friends who had parents that were successful, they're the ones that dreamt to be a dentist or a doctor or, something a little bit more advanced, right? For me, it was just, I don't know. I didn't, I was working hard out in the field, like growing food and helping my mom like around the house. So I think the only thing for most of the girls in Lithuania at that time was just like, you're going to have a family, you're going to have 2 kids, you're going to be stay-at-home mom. And that's kind of what, what's expected. And these are the boxes that you're going to be checking off. And in Lithuania, it's probably changing a little bit now, but like it was like if you're 21, 22, like every girl is getting married, every girl is having kids. And most of the girls are either stay-at-home moms or, they might be like makeup artists or hairdressers or, nannies, something along those lines. But I never dreamt big. I actually, somebody asked me that question not too long ago. They're like, what did you do and what did you play when you were a kid that, like some people play with Legos and they become engineers. Like, what did you do? I'm like, I don't know. I pretended to be like a store worker and I thought it was really cool to weight stuff and count change. I was like, that's what I did. So who knows? Maybe I would have been working at the register. But yeah, I didn't have big dreams.
How soon though after you got here did, I'll say, your aperture open and all of a sudden you're like, I've got opportunities?
Yeah. I would say almost immediately. Like obviously there was that shock moment, right? And probably first year was just like everything was just kind of gray and I don't even know what's happening. I'm just kind of
Drinking
running
from a fire hydrant.
Yeah. So it was just a lot going on. But then even as I started getting like little jobs, right? Like I said, making dumplings in the basement of the Russian store, being a babysitter, working in Coney Island, like even those little jobs, I was just like, wow, I can, it's easy to find a job. I can find a job. I can save money. And obviously I didn't save money for myself. Everything, it was kind of, spent as a family for the rent and food and everything else. But I started noticing that like if I work hard enough, opportunities are there. And I didn't mind starting from, whatever the lower position. Like I said, if I have to scrub toilets, I'll do it. Whatever it takes to get to the next step and to prove my work, my worth, and I was willing to do it. So to me, it was, I would say, immediate to where I was just like, wow, like all these things that are happening and all these things that other people doing, and then you going to school and meeting people from different backgrounds and hearing their stories and what their parents are doing, what they were doing. It was really inspiring and encouraging. So I knew that as long as I'm willing to work, the opportunities were there. And that's how I feel like that's how I grew up too. From the moment when we like kind of started dreaming about United States, like United States was always in our minds like the land of opportunities. You knew that that's where people, whatever you put your mind to, you can be. If your parents were farmers and you want to be a business owner and you want to be a doctor or, something completely different, like as long as you work hard and you put your mind to it, like you can make that happen. So nothing was holding you back. And I think because of that dream and then actually moving and seeing those opportunities, it was just, I thought it was easy from there on.
I am in no way trying to say anything negative about your mom. I'm putting the stereotype that I know of from my immigrant side of my family.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the commonalities seems to be once you get here, especially that first generation, hey, just be happy you're here. Don't rock the boat. Don't push the bubble. Keep your head down. Go find a menial job. Was your mom trying to encourage you to break that bubble? Or was she more like, hey, just be happy with the fact that you're here. Find some job around the house. What I mean by around the block, something,
Right.
And stay in this little world.
Yeah. And I would say my mom, one thing that I'm really thankful to my mom is that she never stopped me from, if I had an idea, if I tried, like in the beginning, she actually was helping me. She was like, Sandra, there's a restaurant. There's like these Russian people making, pilomeni, the dumplings. And she's the one that helped me to kind of get those jobs like initially. But she never either pushed me one way, but she also never stopped me when I had an opportunity or was like, hey, mom, I want to do this. She always said, go figure it out. You got this. So I don't think she never leaned it one way or the other. She was very neutral in a way. And I think it came from just, she trusted me that I'll figure it out. I got a good head on my shoulders and, whatever it is. And we're really close to this day. We're like, my sister, my mom and I were like super close. So we always knew, if we try it, it doesn't work out. Okay, we'll do something else. But she wasn't one of those moms that like, oh, don't do it. Who do you think you are? Just be happy and don't,
That's
like
cool.
Yeah. So she was always supportive.
How does the military come to your mind?
Great question. So it wasn't in my mind at all. I worked in Coney Island. If you ever been to Brooklyn, it's the iconic spot, right? So I worked there. It was one of my summer jobs. I worked a couple of summers and I sold, cotton candy and hot dogs and that kind of stuff. And every morning when I was going to work, I would pass by the recruiting station. And that was about 2003 when the whole Iraq invasion was happening and everything else. So they were recruiting really heavily. So I would walk by the recruiting station every morning and there were 2 or 3 guys standing in uniform and they're like, come talk to us. And was like, no, I don't speak English, don't understand. And I would just keep walking, like I would not even pause. And so months go by, every day they try to talk to me, and I was just like, I have no idea who they are and what they want and why they're wearing these funny clothes. Like, I have no idea. I did not know much like about the military. Like I said, everything was still really, really unknown to me. And one morning I was going to work and it was a female standing there in uniform. And I still remember Sergeant Pinnock. I try to look her up. I can't find her, but I just want to tell her, like, I'm so thankful that one morning she was standing there. But for some reason, because maybe it was just a female and I just felt less intimidated, she was like, hey, come talk to me. And I was like, okay, well, what do they have to offer? So I walk into her office and, you know, she starts talking to me and I was like, I don't really speak English. Like, I don't understand. And, you know, she's talking like the military kind of language. And I was like, no, I don't understand. And she started showing me, she was like, hold on, let me show you pictures. And she started showing me pictures. She's like, see, that's me in Germany. That's me, you know, traveling. It's me doing cool stuff. And you get free school. And she started selling me. And I was just like, that sounds like a really good gig. I was like, I get to travel. I get to go to school for free. So I go home and I tell my mom that I'm joining the military. And
How'd that go?
Oh, that was the only time that my mom was like, no. She was like, what are you doing? But that's also, to her defense, all the news that night, especially that night, it was just like, I think it was like Jessica Lynch. It was one of the girls that was like captured or kidnapped in Iraq during that time. So everything was on the news, like, you know, things are happening, we're starting like so bad. And so my mom kind of seeing this stuff, and here I am walking in like, hey, I'm joining the military, and my recruiter is coming tonight to get my green card and, you know, my Lithuanian passport, and she needs copies of all those documents. And so I still remember that night. My mom was actually crying and she was like, don't do it. You know, what are you getting yourself into? And I don't know, I still did it. I joined the reserves first to begin with, because once again, I had no idea what I was getting into, whatever they told me. I was actually surprised that I passed the ASVAB test, because I was like, you know, like I said, English was very minimal on my end. So I think the only thing that got me through on the higher score was the math, because numbers are numbers no matter what country you're in. So I did really good in math. That got me just enough to pick the job that I kind of wanted, I guess, but, you know, some of the better jobs. But yeah, that's kind of how I stumbled into the military.
Did you know as soon that day after walking out of the recruiting office, like, yes, I'm all 100% in on this?
I think I didn't quite understand what I was getting myself into. It was just more like preschool, a job, you know, security. Like, I can help my mom, I can help my sister. Like, I think that's all really went through my head. I wasn't really understanding of what it's going to be like. I had no idea there were other branches. I thought Army was the only branch. And I always laugh about it. I'm like, I still think so, but that's a conversation for another time.
A lot of good research that you did there.
Yeah. So, but I didn't walk out like, that's what I want to do. I think I walked out a little puzzled and confused. Like, what is this about? Sounds really good. And I think I just took a chance. I just took a risk and signed up. And next thing I know, I was in boot camp. And yeah, the rest.
Where was that at?
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
And you went in on a reserve contract originally. Mm-hmm. As a reserve, do you have a specific MOS going in?
I did, yeah. So I had I was medical administration, yes, which 68 Golf in the Army, that's the MOS. Yeah. But I picked it. I mean, I had a couple other choices. Obviously, they were, you know, do you want to be a cook, a mechanic? And that was probably one of the best choices for me. So I picked that, and I did basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and then I did my AIT in Fort Sam, Houston, San Antonio, Texas. And then I came back, and my reserve station was just across the bridge in Staten Island. So I still remember, like, the weekend drills. I would have to take like 3 buses to get to that base. I would literally have to transfer a bus, transfer another bus, and take another bus to get to that base.
Is that Fort Drum?
No, not Fort Drum. Fort Drum is way north. This was like a tiny, I don't even know the name of it. It's tiny little. Fort Hamilton is where I enlisted, where, you know, I swore in. But it was another tiny little reserve kind of base in Staten Island, and tiny. I don't even remember the name of it, but yeah.
When you were in basic training, how was that experience for you?
Oh, fun. Fun. No, Honestly, basic training in the way was fun for me because I grew up kind of like a tomboy and a little bit like I loved camping. I loved being outdoors. Like I said, I worked out in the field quite a bit when I was young. So to me, like living with no water for a while or not being able to shower for a little while was totally normal. Like it wasn't, kind of heard or I've lived through it already. So it was easy in that aspect. I enjoyed it. I was good at it because just naturally that's what I have done throughout my childhood. The hard part was obviously English, right? And then that stress where they're like yelling at you and you have to like rush and I was like, "Oh, get your poncho." I'm like, "What the hell is poncho?" Like, never heard of it. So then, you're just looking at everybody else. What are they grabbing? You're grabbing the same thing. And the next thing I was like, okay, that's a poncho. Now I remember. And so.
What is the grind? It's not just a routine, but the decision we make to wake up, give everything we've got, then find a way to go further. Grind, spelt GRND, is more than a brand. It's a movement, an emotion we all feel connected to as we work daily to pursue our goals and support each other. Founded by a former Army Ranger, Grind Activewear has a clear mission to give 100% and then some more in sport, fitness, and in life. Functional, high-quality performance wear that's rooted in American culture because you demand gear that outworks the rest. Whether you're on the field, in the gym, or building your own lane, Grind is for those who refuse to settle. Go check out the Grind Collective, that's the grndcollective.com, and tap into something bigger than clothing. And while you're there, use the promo code TRANSITION15 to get 15% off your purchase.
Drill sergeants would pick on me all the time, and that's just because I was an easy target, right? I didn't speak any English, but I went in as a very, would say, like fragile 18-year-old that just kind of was timid and I didn't know much. And by the time I graduated, even my drill sergeants, they're like, we don't know you and we don't know much about your background, but you're gonna go places. And I felt like the military was also the reason why. I don't know. It made me grow up. Like it made me really, even though I knew the opportunities were there before, like the military truly pushed me to where it's like, yeah, I can do anything I put my mind to. And no hard work will intimidate me. I can do anything. So yeah. So basic training I actually enjoyed it. I really didn't mind. Fort Leonard was really, really cold, which once again, we call it Fort Lost in the Woods, Missouri, right? But it was very similar to Lithuanian climate too. It was flat, lots of wood, just woods everywhere, cold in the winter, snow, dark nights and evenings, and I'm like, that's kind of how I grew up. So to me, it wasn't.
I joined the Army, went back home.
Yeah, exactly. So
was your mom able to come to graduation?
I don't think so. No, I don't think I had anybody. That's a good question. Now I'm trying to remember. I don't think I did have anybody because I do remember everyone else's families were there and mine wasn't. I do remember right after the graduation, everybody kept talking about IHOP, and I was like, "What's IHOP? I never heard of it." And they're like, "What? I gotta take you to IHOP." So right after graduation, we all went to IHOP to get breakfast, and I thought it was amazing.
Where I was going with it is, what was your first experience with your mom after graduating from basic training, and what was her impression of the young girl that left to the young girl that came back?
Yeah, no, my mom noticed it. So next time I saw my mom was probably after I came back from Texas from AIT and I got back to Brooklyn. She noticed immediately. She was like, when you left, you would speak really quietly or be more timid or be more shy. And she was like, now you're just like, you like grew up. Like you're more confident, you're more, focused. You just kind of just seem like a stronger person. And I feel like not just my mom made those comments, also my mom's friends as well. So it was really noticeable that, and for the right reason, right? I went in, like I said, kind of a newbie, not knowing anything about not just the military, but just in general, like the American kind of culture and like being thrown into the basic training with people from all different states and different places. Like living in Brooklyn, I was still surrounded by like some similar faces, right? Like I say, a lot of Eastern Europeans, a lot of Russians. But then you go to basic training and then none of that is there anymore. It's all different people from different states. So So it really made me grow up. I feel like I felt like more confident, stronger. Like even walking down the street in Brooklyn, like some random people will pull up and I know they're up to no good and they're trying to like reel me in for some sketchy stuff. I would be like, no, don't talk to me. Or like I was a little more assertive. So it definitely made me grow up a lot faster. Yeah.
Did you end up ever deploying as a reserve?
Yeah, well, not as a reserve. So, but that was the reason why I went active. So I was only in the reserves for about a year, and 2003, right, to about 2000, late 2004, by the time I finished basic training in AIT, and they started talking about deployments. And they're like, yeah, we need people, and especially since I was in the medical field, they're like, we're going to start deploying people. And my thing was, if I'm going to deploy, I want to know my job really well, and I want to be able to train, I want to be able to shoot, I want to be, like, the 2 days out of the month is not going to do it for me. Like, I need to be expert in what I do, especially if I'm going to go to war. And so I kind of started entertaining idea like I should go to switch to active duty. So I still remember going to Fort Hamilton where I sat down and talked. I don't remember if it was like a command sergeant major or somebody, and I was just like, I'm thinking about going active duty. I was like, what duty stations do you have? And they're like, oh, we have Fort Drum. It wasn't Fort Drum. Like, I don't know. Some of the bases there, like nobody wants to go, right? It was like one of the, like in the middle of nowhere. And I was just like, yeah, no, I was like, I want Italy or Germany because I wanted to go back to Europe. And I was like, Italy or
I'm
Germany.
not picky.
Yeah. And then they're like, no, we don't have it. And I was like, well, okay, thanks. Then I'm not, I'll stay in reserves. And then they're like, okay, just wait for a second. We'll be back. 2 minutes later, they come back. They're like, we have Germany. Is that okay? I was like, that's fine. So I get Germany 2005.
Still the same MOS?
Still the same OS. In 2005, January, I go to Germany. And as soon as I land in Germany and the sergeant picks me up and drives me from the airport, he was like, so you ready? I was like, ready for what? He was like, we're going to Iraq in a couple months. I was like, oh, I guess I am. I'm like, but I'm sure you guys will get me ready. So yeah. So I was, we did the training. I had enough time to where kind of what I wanted. If I was going to go and deploy, I wanted to train. I want to be good at my job, especially I feel like with my English barrier, I wanted to make sure that I'm not, thrown in a situation where other people's lives depend on me and then I screw up. So
you ended up in Iraq. What
I was
year?
in Iraq 05, 06 for a year. So deployed September 05, came back September 06. Mainly in Baghdad. I was part of the medical regulating office, which oversaw all the major hospitals throughout Iraq and all the medevacs. So we did all mainly mass casualty evacuations. So a lot of, flying to different hospitals, but mainly kind of anytime there's an explosion or something happens, we're the ones that would get all the requests for medevacs, and we would engage the Blackhawks mainly to go and pick up. We did all the air evacuations. So that was also really stressful. The first few months, I was in tears. I'm not gonna lie. I was literally crying in my bed because I was just like, I was scared. Like all these radios are coming in, phones are ringing, right? And it's just maybe 5, 6 of us are running the shop, and throughout the whole Iraq, right, we kind of navigated where everything is gonna go, and not only the medical terminology, but then the quick, like the stress and things depend on you, how quickly you process and how accurately you take it to medevac. So it's really stressful. And some of my friends would make fun of me and they're like, oh, Sandra, how did you say that? Or, because I would not hear words or I mispronounce them or I didn't know how to spell them. It was really, really stressful. And I feel like in about 2-3 months, I was just like, okay, I got this. Like, you just kind of learn under fire and just move on. So,
Ever a point where you actually went, man, I made the wrong decision. I should not have joined,
no,
or at least gone active.
Yeah, no, not at all. I think that was the pivot point to where I'm like, you know what, I want to re-enlist and I want to stay. Not because of what I saw that nothing was pretty, right? And it was definitely a lot of scary moments, and I can't imagine what my mom went through the few times that I did get to call her, and it was stressful. It was a lot, but like the camaraderie that I felt with like my peers and my unit is just how tight we were and how much I've learned, and also how much I've seen that made me appreciate the lives that we live here and how good my life is, even though it grew up under USSR and things that I had to do when I was a little kid, working hard and making sure that we have food on the table. But all that kind of was like, all right, I had it really good compared to what's happening in that country specifically. So, and then as a woman too, right? It's being in a country where women are a little bit more suppressed and it's just different dynamics. Like seeing a lot of that also was eye-opening.
Coming back from that deployment back to Germany?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you already said that, so after that experience, you were like, hey, I'm going to re-enlist. Re-enlist to the point you'd already decided I'm going to make it a career, or I'm just going to go one more enlistment and then evaluate after that?
I think at first it was like one more enlistment, but very shortly after that, because I was fast tracking. I went in as a private. I got promoted to staff sergeant in like 5-6 years. Like I was fast tracking really well. I loved the military. Like I said, I was always raising my hand. I was always curious. I was learning. But right after I re-enlisted, I knew like I want to make this a career, and I wanted it. And I truly felt in my heart. I was like, I'm good at this. I enjoy it. I like the camaraderie. I love to travel. Like that was one of the big things that why I joined the military. I really wanted to travel. So, everything that I saw within the military, like I just absolutely loved. And I knew like the fact that I was fast tracking, I was always like, okay, by the time I'm hitting, even less than 20 years, like I'm going to be a command sergeant major. Like I had big dreams for the military. Yeah.
Did your career plan in the sense of MOS, what you wanted to do, did that pivot? Did you start, because you mentioned getting to do security detail. Mm-hmm. How are those pivots happening?
So those were just like additional duties that I was assigned. And once again, I was assigned because I would always volunteer and I would always be in front of anywhere anybody needed me. Like I'm there to help. So anytime, like even when we were in Iraq, they needed extra duty. And I think Iraq was also a different dynamics because a lot of my friends had family back home. They had little kids. I'm single, I'm young. So to me, a lot of times when they needed volunteers to go on a convoy or they needed the volunteers to go and do personal security for command sergeant major, I would raise my hand because, like, sure, nobody wants to die and nobody wants to go into danger. But I'm like, if not me, then somebody who's got little kids have to go, or, or maybe somebody who doesn't feel ready and doesn't want to go or feels scared. So I always volunteered. And I think as people noticed that, they're like, okay, well, yeah, we'll pick Sandra. So I got assigned to a bunch of different duties and I got selected to be on the color guard, but I always had the same MOS. I never changed it. There was one point of time where I looked and I applied for like defense attaché and I looked to go kind of a different route. I was like exploring, like, should I go an officer route and, try something different? But then things happened and my career got cut short. But yeah, I was always in the medical field.
Before we get to the career cutting short again, did you end up redeploying again?
No, that was the only year that I did in Iraq. Yeah.
And as far as the officer option, was it available to you at a certain point, or was it something you just kind of was like, if it comes up, I might explore it?
Yeah. So I always wanted to go, like I was taking random classes here and there, and like education was really important to me because a lot of my family, like my mom or my dad, like, they didn't have higher education. So it's like something that I always wanted to pursue. And that's when like kind of learning about the structure of the military, because believe it took me a little longer to kind of realize, okay, there's officers, there's warrant officers, right? But that's when I started entertaining, I think, as I kind of got around and learned a little bit of how it works, that I was just like, oh, I really would like to get a bachelor's degree and I would love to go into an officer's side just so I can do the schooling, get the degree, and then, continue climbing up. So that was the only thing, but it wasn't necessarily that I was set on something very specific. And also, since I spoke other languages, I wanted to use the languages. So that's why I was applying for like defense attaché, do some of the linguist stuff. But once again, that kind of didn't happen just because of the short cutoff. Yeah.
One last question before we get into that incident. Because of your language background and your knowledge of Eastern Europe, were you ever pulled towards that direction?
No, and it's crazy because I used to get paid for Lithuanian. I spoke Russian, but I think Russian, I don't know in one of the levels I wasn't like proficient enough to be paid for. So like I could speak, I can listen, but I think my reading maybe wasn't up to the standard. So I was getting paid for Lithuanian. My Russian was, pretty good, but maybe not good enough. And I never, ever, ever got to actually put my languages to use. Once I transitioned out of the military, I hear my buddies calling me and they're like, Sandra, guess where I'm at? I'm like, where? They're like, we're in Lithuania. Like, I'm stationed here. I'm like, how do you get stationed in Lithuania? Like, you don't even speak Lithuanian. I was in this whole time, never got to go. But it was also, I think, the timing, like when I was in,
Right.
Nobody was really getting assigned or stationed in Lithuanian, and things were shifting with NATO and everything else, and then more opportunities came around. But no, I never, I got to translate for work as a translator for one of the guys who was at the Air Force Academy. He got into some trouble. He was Lithuanian, and they asked me to come and do some translations for his, it's kind of like a hearing, but that's the only time I ever put my languages to use.
How different is the Lithuanian language from Russian?
Completely different. So yeah, Lithuania, like the Russian has like completely different alphabet. Lithuanian alphabet is the Latin, kind of like English, Spanish, right? But yeah, it's completely different. Like the only reason most Lithuanians understand Russian because Russia was almost like a mandatory, right, second language they had to learn. But no Russians understand Lithuanian because it's completely like the way you write, the way you speak. It's all completely different alphabet.
So as a kid growing up, when you went to school, they taught in Lithuanian, but going to Russian classes was one of your classes each day.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, Russian was like mandatory, kind of like your second language. And then you get to pick other languages too. Like there was French. Eventually I started taking English, some of the English classes. There were German. German was really popular because a lot of people would move to Germany. But Russian was always kind of like your second language. But I also grew up listening to a lot of Russian songs, watching Russian cartoons, shows. So Russian was always kind of like that secondary language that lingered around. But like my sister, we 5.5 years difference. She doesn't speak Russian. She took, other languages because like as you go further away from when we broke off, then people would get to choose different languages, and they usually wouldn't choose Russian necessarily. So yeah.
So she's probably young enough that she really doesn't remember
a
lot of the pre-Lithuanian re-independence.
Yeah, no, she was born in 1990, so right as we became independent. So she only seen and remembers, the post-Soviet. Yeah.
So let's get into the incident that derailed your career.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What happened?
Motorcycle accident. So I loved motorcycles. I grew up with my neighbors riding dirt bikes and street bikes. So I've always been into motorcycles. And one day I thought it was a good idea to get a motorcycle. I was stationed actually in Virginia, bought a bike. My buddy helped me lower it, taught me how to ride it. I got my,
What'd you buy?
Suzuki Gixxer 600.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got a bike, moved to Colorado, and it was just one of the day I went out riding with my buddies.
Now, when you say moved to Colorado, I'm sorry to interrupt.
I got stationed in Colorado.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was just your career path. Colorado was your next duty station.
Yeah, it was next duty station. And so when I got to Colorado, I brought my bike with me from Virginia, and Colorado is a beautiful place, right? Especially riding a bike, especially in the summer. It's so many windy, nice roads and beautiful scenery. So it was one of the days we were just cruising outside of Colorado Springs, going on this little windy road out in the country, and my back tire hit the gravel as I was going around a curve and just bent from under me. And next thing I know, I was in a hospital. I had a pretty bad TBI. I lost a chunk of my side and lots of skin, but I also broke my back. So one thing that they thought I was going to be paralyzed when they took me into the hospital. They thought there's going to be a chance of me not walking and being paralyzed from neck down. So they had to rush me into the emergency room, stabilize it, put a bunch of metal in my back. And yeah, it was definitely a life-changing experience in a way that, it shattered all my dreams to stay in the military and make that as my career, but also just everything, like the way I looked at life. I think everything kind of changed in my head of how short the life can be and how precious it can be, and then at the same time, how one little instance out of your control can take everything away.
How many years in were you at that point?
8.
And laying in the hospital bed, I'm assuming, based on what you're saying, you're in some sort of full traction, so you've got zero movement at all?
So when I came out of the surgery, I was able to move like my toes and, but
There are a lot of veteran and first responder-owned coffee companies out there. Trident Coffee is one of them, but they're different. They're cold brew experts, and their beans are roasted for cold brew optimization. But for those of you who love hot coffee, this is a benefit to you as well. Hot or cold, their coffees taste amazing without the bitterness. Their instant cold brew is infused with powerful ingredients for performance, focus, and wellness, including antioxidants and electrolytes, ensuring smooth, steady energy with no jitters and no crashes. This isn't just coffee, it's fuel for your brain and your body. Whatever your coffee needs, Trident has you covered. From a variety of great tasting roasted beans to their instant cold brew and nitro cold brew in a can for when you're on the go. However you drink it, Trident Coffee is coffee upgraded. Get yours now at tridentcoffee.com and use the promo code TDP15 for 15% off your purchase.
Pretty much laid in a bed. I had a big collar on. I couldn't, they would move me. They would have to put pillows under my bed so I don't get bed sores. And I had a catheter, right? I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't do anything, but.
The moving of your toes, though, was the indicator that you were not going to be paralyzed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like you had to spend a certain period of time going, I don't know until they let me get up and see if I can move around.
Yeah, no. Yeah, they knew right away that I'll be walking again and I'll be okay. It's just going into the surgery. And when I saw my doctor months and years later, he always said, you're a miracle. The fact that you're walking is most people that come in with those kind of fusions and those kind of accidents either don't make it or they come out, paralyzed for the most time. And that was actually because when I was riding, a couple of my friends were with me, and when I got in an accident, I slid on the road and kind of ended up in the ditch. There were a bunch of people that stopped, and some people tried to take my helmet off. And my buddies, they're we almost got in a fight with those people that try to take your helmet off, because if they try to take my helmet off and they tweaked something a little bit, because it was really, really close to my C-spine.
Right.
So if they would have tweaked anything, it would have been pretty bad. Could have been
and
way worse.
You were able to avoid getting hit by any other vehicles or anything. You just went down on your own and slid across the roadway.
Yeah.
How soon, laying there in the hospital, are you aware that your military career is done?
I think I think I knew fairly early, but I also didn't want. I'm still stubborn, if you ask some of my friends, but I was very stubborn. I still remember the next morning, we actually had a ball, I think, a military ball happening the night when I was maybe in or maybe it was the next day it was happening, but I know my whole command showed up, not everybody, but a lot of my friends, the command sergeant major, so many people showed up and they were all dressed up, and I still remember laying and I was drugged up. And I was just oh, you guys dressed up just for me, so so cute, and I'm cracking jokes. And for the first few months, I think I was still even telling my command sergeant major, I was yeah, I'll be fine, I'll recover, because they were getting ready to deploy, so that would have been my second deployment, and I was still kind of at the mindset that I'm gonna go and I'm gonna be fine, but in the back of my head, I knew the reality was that I'm just trying to tell that to myself, and it's not the actual reality.
How long did you end up spending in the hospital?
About a month, and then I went into the rehab. I don't want to say rehab center. It was kind of rehabilitation, but live-in rehabilitation. And I still remember I was laying in bed and wheelchair first, and a little bit of the walker, and I had a collar on me, and I was just kind of learning all over how do you shower. I couldn't do a lot of things, getting dressed. But the crazy thing was that most of the people in that hospital were old people. They were there because they're just getting old, deteriorating. And here I am, 20-some-year-old, sitting there, and I'm just like, man, I can't do anything. And then eventually they try to like not kick me out, but I still remember the night the doctor walked in. He was like, I think we're going to discharge you tomorrow. And I just like broke down in tears. And all the nurses ran in and they're like, what's wrong? And I was just like, I live in the barracks. Like, I can't shower. I can't get dressed. Like, how am I gonna? And they're like, well, yeah, you have friends. Like, they'll help you to get dressed. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure there'll be a line of a bunch of guys standing in the hallway helping me get dressed. Like, no, like if I was like, I'm not ready to go. But it was good and bad. Like, my doctor was kind of pushy as far as like, you need to try harder and push through the pain a little bit more. So it was good, but then sometimes I also had to stop him and be like, hey, I'm not ready. I literally cannot, can barely feed myself kind of thing. But I think once I got discharged and I got back to the dorms and I had to start doing things on my own, I recovered fairly quickly, I would say.
Were you discharged in a wheelchair, or were you actually mobile enough to walk around at that point?
I had a walker, so I think they brought me back in the wheelchair, but I don't think I kept the wheelchair. It was just the walker that I kept.
From the Army's perspective, did you feel that they were, I'll use the word supportive during this process, and that when you got discharged and you're back on base and you're living amongst everybody, but still obviously completely down, were they like, hey, take your time? Or did you kind of feel like, hey, you got X number of time before you're either going to, pardon my French, shit or get off the pot?
Right. I got really lucky. I feel like I had a really supportive command. The whole situation, and I always laugh because right now I work with transitioning service members that are wounded, ill, and injured, and I always say, I'm like, if you think 6 to 8 months getting out of the military is a long time, like to get through the medical board process, like it took me almost 2 years to get through the medical board process, which some people think is a good or a bad thing, right? It could be good because you truly have time to heal and react and plan and kind of explore, okay, what are you going to do next so you don't feel rushed? But at the same time, it's also a lot of like hurry up and wait and not knowing. And, you can really get down on yourself and get into your head and just too much time to sit around and think and not be able to do your job or really do anything. So my command didn't rush it. It took me, I took my time. They waited until I healed because I had to do a lot of physical therapy, like even things like driving. I had to go and, kind of not learn how to drive, but certain things, that I had to do to make sure that I'm safe on the road, and do a lot of appointments, a lot of physical therapy, a lot of healing. And then, whenever I was ready, like they were very supportive. Like if I wanted to go back to school while I was transitioning, we were going through that transition. They supported me to do that. All the appointments that I had to attend, they were always like, yeah, go do what you got to do. So I had a really supportive command. I mean, I had hiccups here and there. But I feel like that happens, you can't let that define your transition. But for the most part, I feel like there was just so many also organizations that reached out and different opportunities that I got to do. I just feel like it was kind of endless. All you have to do is just, take an opportunity and go learn and be curious and then let people come and help you. But there was definitely a lot of resources. I felt pretty much supported.
You said the med board process was 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Was it that long because it was, hey, we want to see if you can get back healthy enough to try to stay in? Or was it more you trying to push off like, hey, I want to take every opportunity before I have to actually say I'm done?
I was pushing really hard for staying. I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. I can run. And it's funny because the doctor that I got who was overseeing kind of my overall medical health, he knew my commander that I was deployed with. He kind of, he was in the military and then he transitioned and now he was a civilian doctor. But he was just like, Sandra, he was like, I can see through your bullshit. Like, he was like, I see that you're stubborn, that you want to stay, that you love the military. But at the same time, he was like, you have to take care of yourself. And he was like, with your condition, if you go back in and you just push through it and you stay active, you wear heavy stuff on you, you keep running, you keep trekking along, like eventually that's going to hurt you in the near future. So you want to be also really smart and mindful, kind of not just think about today, but think about your future and your health. So I think he put a little reality check into my head that, hey, I can't just be stubborn and I can't just be like, yeah, I'm deploying, I'm going, it's totally fine. Which that's what I was trying to do for a little while. And then eventually I was like, okay, I came to realization that it is better for me to transition. And I was in a lot of, I'm still in pain 24/7. I'm always in pain. It's one of those things. But I also thought, like, if I stay in the military, I'll be busy, I'll be doing things, I'll be engaged, right? Like, and I can take my mind off of the medical condition that I have. So yeah, it took a little while, both on my side, kind of pushing back a little bit at first, but then also taking the time, healing, making sure I do everything properly and documenting everything. And
Well, and that's the important thing, is not just to focus on your back when you're, say, 25. You got to be thinking about, what's my back going to be like when I'm 65?
right.
And so the 25-year-old in you is like, I'm good to go. Let's go. Let's put it back on. But you got to, like the doctor pointed out, you're going to run yourself into the ground, and you are not 100% anymore. No matter how much you want to say you are, your body is going to tell you, no, I'm not.
Yeah. And I'm one of those people too that I've never been like, I can't just not like do PT. I can't be, on profile. Like, it's just never been me. I've always been like, I PT multiple times a day. Like, I have to max it. I have to do it. So knowing myself, I'm glad I didn't stay in, because I truly probably would have hurt myself further, because, I'm not one of those people to sit on the sidelines and say like, yeah, sure, I can't run, but I'm going to yell at everybody else to run faster. Like, I just can't do it.
So what was your actual separation date?
It was 2012, July 15th.
And did you have anything lined up at that point?
No. So I just bought a house right before transitioning in Colorado Springs. I was going to school, just a community college there locally, while I was going through the transition. And I didn't have a job lined up. I did an internship at Department of Homeland Security in Denver. They did offer me a job, but I decided that I don't want to go in federal sector without having a bachelor's degree. So I've done my research. I was like, if I'm going to go in and take some kind of position, I want to make sure that like I can focus and I can be the best of myself. And if I'm going to try to like juggle a full-time job and a full-time education, then I'm kind of not good at it either. So I really wanted to focus on education. I knew that there's a lot of really great benefits. So I applied for San Diego State in California, and that's how I ended up in San Diego.
Of all the places to apply, what specifically about San Diego State made you apply there?
It's funny. I actually applied for 2 schools. I applied for San Diego State.
And Hawaii.
And Hawaii. Exactly. Exactly.
How could I figure that one out?
Because my whole life, too, like, ever since I was dreaming about United States, my sister and I were been obsessed with, like, surfing and palm trees and beach. You don't have that in Lithuania. So
you don't have that at Coney Island either.
Right. Yeah. So to me, it was just like, man, how cool would it be? So I was like, I purely picked school on a location. I applied for Hawaii. Hawaii took a little longer to respond whether I got accepted. San Diego State right away, like, send me a letter. Congratulations to you in. And I was like, all right, San Diego it is. So
what degree program did you enter?
I did an International Security and Conflict Resolution, ISCOR.
And what was your long-term plan with that degree?
I wanted to go into government. So like I said, I did my internship at the DHS, and I absolutely enjoyed it. I thought, if not the military, then I'm going to go Secret Service, FBI, DHS, like any of those. And I did apply. I've interviewed with quite a few different federal agencies and got offers. Once again, turned them down. But it was also kind of like a learning experience, right? I thought that's what I wanted to do. As I was applying, other opportunities came up. Then I decided, I should get my master's. And then I also was growing older, right? So I was like, okay, maybe what I thought 2-3 years ago that I want to go into the FBI and be an agent, now it's not necessarily what I want to do, because I also purchased a condo and I was getting settled in San Diego. And I was like, do I want them to tell me where to go? And, once again, being that kind of hopping around the world and not having a stable place. And I think I chose at that time that I just want to stay in San Diego a little bit longer, pursue my master's degree, and then kind of go from there. So it was federal government in my sight, but then things have changed as I was navigating it.
With that long process going through your med boards, you're July 2022, you're out. How soon did you move to San Diego and start going to school?
So I moved, I got out July 2012. I moved in
Sorry,
August.
12. That's at 2022.
Yeah, 2012. I moved to San Diego August 2013, so just a year later.
At any point in that process, did you have that period? I guess where I'm going with this, you had such a long time to work your way out of the military. Once you were officially out, a civilian, into this next phase of your life, was it a smooth transition for you, or did you struggle with that?
Oh, I struggled. It was scary. It was scary and scary for everyone, right? It doesn't matter how many years we spend and what rank we were getting out of. But for me, coming to the United States and not knowing anything and then kind of finding that family and that like, okay, that's my little tribe, right? The military, and then being so good at it, like fast tracking, getting to do so many amazing things. Like I was so good at it. And now all of a sudden it's like, all right, you're out. And I don't know civilian life. Like the only civilian life in the United States that I know is just that one year in between, right? Moving and joining. So it was like another challenge for me. Okay, now I have to figure it out. Like, how does civilian world work? Like, how do I, benefits, just bunch of different stuff that once again I had to kind of like do a lot of research. And one thing that I did, I think, as I was transitioning out, I never said no to opportunity. If people were like, hey, we have this program about X, Y, and Z, I'm like, I don't know what that means, but can I come and sit in the informational session, or can I come and learn about it? I would always take the time to, whatever it is, I'll go in and I'll learn, and then I'll make that decision whether it's for me or not. But even if it is not for me, then great. I've learned something new. I can share it with my battle buddies who might need it. So I always took an opportunity. I always was curious and I was always learning. And I think that helped me. So by the time I did transition, there's like certain things that I'm like, okay, here are the programs that I can fall back on. Here are the things that, I can reach out to if I'm struggling. But it was hard. It was, I really felt lost for a little while. The good thing that I was still there, so I would get to hang out with my buddies there. But like I said, they were deploying. So for a little bit of a time, they were gone. So I was really feeling lost. But I kept myself busy. I got an opportunity, a cool thing I'll share. As I was transitioning through these different resources, different places that I was always kind of signing up and going and learning, I met this lady and her husband who later, when I was like traveling with my sister, emails me and she goes, hey, Sandra, do you want to go climb Kilimanjaro? They're looking for a veteran who wants to, join his team. They're doing this like big thing. And it's, kind of like an inspirational climb that they're putting together. And I was just like, oh, I can't carry more than like 10 pounds on my back. But I was like, sure, like sign me up. Tell me more. So I meet with this guy, Kyle Maynard, who is quadruple amputee. He was born with no limbs, right? So just right above his elbows and right above his knees. And he was the first quadruple amputee to crawl Kilimanjaro with no prosthetics, no help, unassisted. So they were looking for a couple of veterans.
Really makes you feel like, man, I haven't done anything in my life.
No, and even with me, I'm like, here I am, crying and struggling and saying, oh, I have a broken back and I'm in pain. Like, and this guy is on all fours, like, climbing up Kilimanjaro and doing jiu-jitsu and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I was like, I have no reason to complain, and I should be thankful, and I should continue pursuing, and I should not sit on the couch and feel sorry for myself. So I got to join his team and go to Atlanta, Georgia, and train with him. And then in January 2012, while I was still in the military, my commander was nice enough to approve my trip and let me go and do it. But we climbed Kilimanjaro, and we carried ashes of one of the fallen soldiers. We spread that up top on the summit. But I think that was also very much changing experience that really helped me in my transition, because it made me realize that, the only disability in life is a negative attitude. If you sit around and you just feel sorry for yourself and you act as a victim, then you're going to be a victim. But if you get up and try and you try and you try and you reach out to your friends and get out in the community. Like there's just so many things you can accomplish and still do no matter what's happening in your life. So
Is that an annual trip that they do?
no,
Or was just a
it was
one-off?
just a one-off. It's just one. We had news. We had so many people on Kilimanjaro knew that we're coming through. They were from different countries. So he's actually done Aconcagua as well, I think. So he's done a couple other one of the tallest summits in other regions, but that was, I think, the first one that kind of set him off to just, hey, let's go climb.
How long was the journey up and down?
Up and down in 10 days. I think we did it in 10 days. Yeah.
Did it give you, maybe this is even another rhetorical question, give you a new perspective on your pain tolerance?
Yeah. I honestly, we didn't have to carry a lot of stuff because we had, the locals that were setting up and doing everything. So it's pretty light, like just bring your water bottle and things you need for the day. But I also...
This episode is brought to you by Brothers in Arms USA. They're a veteran-owned and operated clothing and accessories brand that's 100% American-made. Every piece tells a story of brotherhood, respect, discipline, and honor. Deeply inspired by those who serve, those who have served, and those who have paid the ultimate price serving our great country. Whether you're an outdoor enthusiast, a proud patriot, or simply somebody who values high-quality American craftsmanship, they've got something for you. Go check out brothersandarms.com, spelled out fully, brothersandarms.com, and use the promo code TRANSITION20 to get 20% off your purchase.
I think it made me realize that, like, I just got to push through it, right? And, like, the more I push through it, the more I move my body and I do things, like, I don't know, the more I'll be able to continue being physically active, right? If I sit on the couch, like things gonna deteriorate a little bit faster. So it did give me a perspective that, like, okay, I'm not completely broken. Like I can still do things. And actually, that was the point where I really got into like hiking, because before I would go on hikes in Colorado, but not as much. And then that's when I realized, like, I don't have to run 5 miles every day. Like I can actually go do hikes. That's a little bit less strenuous on my body. I can do other things. So I started climbing a lot and, hiking, and got into a bunch of other different activities with different groups in Colorado. So that really pushed me into like, go explore. And actually, I never snowboarded before in my life, not until after my accident. So there's a lot of sports that I picked up because of the accident and that climbing the Kilimanjaro and realizing, okay, I might have broken bones, but I'm not broken. I can
Did you get back on a motorcycle?
No. My mom and my sister would kill me.
Any plans to do any other big hikes? Or have you done any other big hikes?
No, I did Mount Whitney. We did, I did Mount Rainier. I didn't summit it, but we got pretty close. So I've done like some bigger ones, not as big as Kilimanjaro, obviously, but done like ice climbing and that kind of stuff. So I got into some cool stuff. Nothing big. I don't have anything planned in the future. I would love to do Everest, but I feel like as I'm getting older, it might get a little bit more, challenging to complete that. But also, it's really expensive, right? It's a big price tag on that climb. So maybe one day.
Coming into San Diego and getting into class. Obviously, San Diego, very much a military town and environment. Did you try to embed yourself in that veteran community, or did you almost, in a weird way, go, no, I'm just going to focus on school and not really acknowledge it too much?
Yeah. I would say not at first. At first, I was just kind of feeling it out, right? Going to school. Like, I haven't been in school. I've taken classes in community college, but I haven't been to like an actual university really ever. So it was kind of like soaking that in. It was scary and different and, and interesting at the same time. So not at first. I would attend little events like at the university because San Diego State has pretty good veteran community and the SVO, but not as much as I probably should have. I would attend little events here and there. And then I think it was like about a year or two into it, I attended a VBC event, and that's when it kind of was just like, okay, this is pretty cool. I want to go to more of these events and get engaged. And now I'm just I feel like I'm all over the place. And every community event that's happening for the military, I definitely go to.
And one of the things I try to talk about when I talk to both veterans and first responders about that transition away, yes, that is a big part of your life. And there's the good aspects of remaining connected in a way. But at the same token, many veterans and first responders almost overcrutch staying in those communities and they don't venture out. You, on the other hand, you are still, and I'm going to loosely say this, a fish out of water. You'd been in the States for about a year and a half, and then you decided to join the Army. You were all over the place. So was Germany your longest duty station?
Yeah, I would say so. Mm-hmm.
And so you get out of Colorado and then immediately transition down to San Diego. So it would be very easy to feel like a complete fish out of water, to where, from a positive side, use that veteran community to at least build up that knowledge base of the area is where I'm going with it.
Yeah. It was like the ISCOR major that I picked, International Security and Conflict Resolution. We had a fair amount of veterans there, so I feel like there was a little bit that similarity in the classroom. But I did tend to lean also a lot on like non-military, right, students. And I made a lot of great friends, and I would always try to sit in a classroom by somebody that I didn't know or maybe wasn't military. Because to me, like, kind of to your point, like, to me it was also really important to figure out this how civilian world works, because that's also unknown to me. But I never ever lost the connection with the military. I was never the one that like, I'm done with the military, I want nothing to do with it. Like I said, I wanted to stay and I wanted to make it a career. So when I did get out, I actually was the opposite. I was like, I want to continue somehow being involved and connected with it, because that's my family. That's my tribe. So,
did you push all the way through into a master's program nonstop?
Pretty much. So I graduated in 2015 from ISCOR from San Diego State, and I applied for Peace and Justice at USD, and I started that program 2016, so like less than a year later, and then graduated in 2018.
The PhD next?
No, actually got another master's. I went to USC and got another master's, and I don't think I'm going to do PhD. It's not out of the picture, but I don't think so. But that's one thing that I talk to transitioning service members now. The educational benefits are just incredible. Like, so many different tracks, and I think that's the thing that like sometimes makes me sad when I talk to service members and I'm like, well, do you know about this benefit and that benefit and this benefit? And they're like, no, I just know GI Bill. And I'm like, yeah, there's GI Bill, but like, not to brag, like I got 2 master's degrees, both from private institutions. I got an undergrad, and I still have 5 months of my education left. So if you do your research, if you don't just jump in and start using those benefits, but you truly understand them and you see how you fit in those different tracks, like, you can have 8-9 years of free education plus the BAH. I always say, like, that's how I save my money for the down payment for the house. So I think using those benefits what really pushed me to go for my education further. But I only have 5 months left, so probably not enough for the PhD.
But that you bring up a great point, and this goes back to like what we were talking about at the beginning, in that it's a symbiotic relationship. The information is there. They don't keep it secret per se, but you've got to take the initiative to go find it. On the same token, though, they're not, and when I say they, the government, the military, right, is not really good about dispensing that information freely, so it's a weird kind of thing. I could see how somebody go, no, I didn't know about it. But even peripherally, you have to know there's stuff out there. Let me just go find it.
Right. And that's one thing too, that to this day I do. Like, I get a email from the VA. I scroll through it, and I scroll all the way through the email to the very bottom, and I see, oh, this update, Montgomery GI Bill came out. If you're going for STEM major, you can extend for 9 months. Like, all these different updates, like, you have to be curious. Like, these are your benefits that you earned. And unless you're going out and looking for it, nobody's going to come and bring it, because everyone's situation is also different. So the government cannot simply like tell everybody like apply for this because somebody might not qualify for certain benefits. But if you in a different category, maybe that's the way for you to go. So I feel like I hear some service members saying like, "Oh, well, I didn't know there's so much," but how much research did you do? And it's up to you to go and find out. If somebody who's non-military applying for school and they're going to be paying out of the pocket, they're probably doing research, what scholarships I can get, how to apply. I apply for it, right? Nobody's bringing it to them. So same concept with the military benefits. Like it's your benefits. You have to go out and understand and read the fine print and see how it works for you. Yeah.
How did you end up in the spot that you're at now, working with the injured veterans and their transitioning?
Yeah, so great question. So remember the internship that I told you that I did with DHS? It was Operation Warfighter Program. So that program is designed for transitioning service members who are wounded, ill, and injured. So it's kind of to help them fill that time while they're waiting for the medical board process with something that has purpose, right? Whether they doing an internship with any agency that they're interested in or just boosting up their resume, networking, that kind of stuff. So I did that internship, and then years later, once I graduated from my master's program, I was looking through jobs and I casually was applying. And I see this job is like, oh, working with transitioning service members, but I didn't put two and two together somehow. I was just like, oh, this sounds like a really great program. And then I'm getting ready for the interview the next morning, and I'm like doing research, and I'm like, Operation Warfighter Program, DHA, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, shoot, I did that internship. And so it was funny because the next morning when I get on the interview, the first question that they ask, they were like, tell us something that we don't know about you. And I was like, I actually went through this program. I did my internship. I got a job offer, made great connections, had a great time, boosted up my resume. So like, here's something that you don't know. And like right away, their faces lit up and they're like, awesome. And so the interview went really well and got hired. And it's just something that I feel like, once again, because I come from a different background and I was always very like, I need to find out and read more and understand because, the language and then new country, like I always like took the time to read a lot of stuff and understand things. I feel like I've learned a lot of stuff throughout my transition. And when I got out and realizing that a lot of my friends are not in the same boat, like they don't know as much or didn't read as much or doesn't understand certain benefits, like I was like, how can I give back and how can I make sure that everyone can have a good transition like I did? Because I truly I feel like I had a really good transition. It was smooth, it was very supportive, it was really like well planned out in a way, and that's what I kind of wanted to give back. I wanted to be the person that helps somebody else behind me to make sure that they get that same experience.
What's the long-term future for you?
Well, so I started a company 3 years ago with two of my friends, retired DHS directors, field directors, great friends. And, we worked for many years before that, and then they retired, and we just kind of got together for a drink and we're like, here's what I want to do. That's what I'm passionate about. And it's like, why don't we create a company and, do something good for the community? So we created a company. We still grow in it. We're still kind of exploring opportunities, but really the idea behind it, one, we want to help military, and I want to bridge the gaps that I see in my career, like things that I've been doing for so many years. I see so many gaps that need to be filled and the need that is there. But also we are focusing on the law enforcement. So we want to make sure that we also supporting law enforcement agencies, and specifically with any of the new technology, any of the new gear that's coming out. I feel like it's so important to keep the law enforcement agents and agencies to in the loop of what's coming out, because as you know, government, whatever was issued 20, 30 years ago, it's probably still being used. Whatever database that they've used 30 years ago, it's still being used, and there's new stuff that's coming out, right? So technology constantly advances, and we want to be the people that can bring that to them so they can touch it, feel it, use it, and see, okay, yeah, we want it, we want to upgrade it, and then we work with different companies that obviously create those software, items, whatever it is. So we're trying to bridge that gap on that end as well. And we've done a lot of interviews, even with, Marine Recon, Navy SEALs, with different, ICE agents, and we've asked that question. We're like, how do you guys go out and find the new vest or the new sling for the gun? Like, how do you find these items? And they're like, oh yeah, we just Google it, or if the buddy tells us that they bought something. But we were like, well, what about, like, we go to SHOT Shows and we actually keep up with everything that's happening and new stuff that's coming out, and we want to make sure that since they don't have time, since they focused on a mission, that we can bring that stuff to them and they can explore and make that decision.
Well, you failed marketing because in all of that, you never even said the name of your company.
Oh, the Complete Solution Group. See, I'm still working on it.
And do you see that as where your pivot point is? Or because I would imagine there's got to be such a level of enjoyment and fulfillment getting to work with the transitioning service members, especially those who are also experiencing injuries.
Yeah.
To where I could almost kind of feel like maybe you wouldn't want to give that up in a weird way.
I love what I do. I absolutely, like, every morning when I wake up and I get so many phone calls where, people are like, thank you, changed my life, or, if not this opportunity, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I love hearing those stories. I love helping service members, and I feel like I truly can connect because I've gone through that process. I know what it's like. I've used a lot of those resources and different benefits, so I can guide them and kind of be their mentor in a way that not just the job that I do, but like other things. I do love it, but I also, doing this for so long, I'm also starting to notice, okay, here are the gaps, here's this. So I think now I'm looking bigger picture. I wanna be, a change maker in a way. I want to make sure that we improve things and we make them better. Like, even with the transition assistance, right? A lot of times I hear stories from service members like, oh, my command is not supportive, or, they mad at their commands. And I'm like, your command is not there to help you transition. Like, the command's job is not a transition piece. Command's job is to run the mission, make sure that they keep this country safe, right? So, plus the command never transition. They can only tell you so much, right? Your commander, command sergeant major, whoever up higher, like, they've never gone through the transition, so they can't tell you a lot of the programs and organizations they don't even know about because they never had to deal with it. So, kind of service member has to advocate for themselves, but at the same time, I feel like there's so much room for improvement when it comes to the transition, because right now it's really much like a lot of programs on active duty side, right? 6 months before, like SkillBridge, OWF. So many different programs are like right before you transition, but then you transition. It's like, okay, now you have all these other nonprofits, but nonprofits cannot come on bases and talk to you before you transition. So there's still barriers and a lot of gaps, and I feel like the transition can be a lot smoother than what it is now. And I also think, like, much bigger picture. I had that conversation yesterday at BBC. I'm like, even San Diego, like, I love living here. And I love it for the reason that we have such a strong military community. But one thing that we notice is
the weather's horrible.
I know, right? We would rather take Fort Leonard, Missouri, right? No. But it's such a great community. It's such a great place to be. And lately, more and more service members, as they transition, they're like, I can't afford to be here. And if they don't get all the tools and resources to prepare themselves and land a decent job or have some kind of security and a place to live, most of them are going to move out. And the conversation that we had yesterday was just like, how do we, as people in the community who are really tied into the military, like, how can we improve it and make sure that we don't lose that? Like, that we continue keeping our veterans here, that, we continue keeping that community of the military and veterans here. So I'm also thinking big picture and kind of all over the place, but that's something that I'm passionate about. That's something that I want to make sure that, somehow I put a little footprint and I can help out with keeping this talent here and helping the transitioning service members.
Well, and that goes back to the importance of the individual plays a huge role in all this. You talk about, somebody went to their command and their command's not giving them any advice on transitioning. They're at the front of the train making sure the train's still going 100 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. You're at the back end about ready to jump off.
Yeah.
They're not, and I don't mean this in a negative way. Right. They're not concerned about you anymore. because they got to keep that train moving. But the biggest thing, I think, if I could tell anybody, first responder or veteran, we come into these careers often at a very young age. We get so head down focused on the job that we never think about what about after. And the one guarantee about these careers, they're not the ones that you retire at 65, get the gold watch and go. They are careers that have a shelf life. You need to be thinking about what you're going to do afterwards the day you walk in the door.
Yeah.
And then you're a practical example. One injury, one incident that, and I don't mean this, it doesn't completely debilitate your life, but it was enough that the military said, you don't get to play on our team anymore.
Yeah.
Completely unexpected transition.
And out of our control. So what can you control is preparing, researching, networking, and setting yourself for success. Yeah, for sure.
You've got your list. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to make sure we talk about?
No, I think we covered a whole lot and then some. So yeah.
Any last pieces of advice you want to make sure that you get out to a veteran or who might be listening as far as preparing for their transition?
Yeah, I would say networking, network, and never burn bridges. I see some service members that you mentioned, like some people get upset with their commands and then they just like kind of blaming the command that they're not helping. I always say focus on what you can control and whatever you can't control, which is other people and the situations that maybe are around you. Like, don't focus on that. Focus on the positive. Commands don't stay there forever. Commands change every couple of years, right? So if you do have a bad commander, like, suck it up, make the best out of it. And then in a couple of years, there'll be somebody else. Learn something from it, right? But at the same time, always network, never burn bridges. And my thing is too that people think that, oh, I'm a month before transition out, I'm going to start networking.
Perfect time to start.
Yeah. It doesn't work that way. I've had some people that, they'll call me, they'll be part of my program for like a month or two. And then in a month, they'll be like, can you write a recommendation letter for me? And I'm like, I talked to you for twice. Like, I don't really know you, I can't vouch for you. So my message, I guess, for the people that are transitioning, networking is such a powerful tool. And I actually had a conversation a few days ago with somebody that spent 20 plus years in the military. And he was like, this networking thing kind of feels awkward or, it's kind of a little cheesy or whatever, but he was like, now I get it. The more I start doing it and the separation between the military community and the law enforcement community is so little. You have, that 2-3 degree separation that somebody knows somebody and all you need is that good connection and you don't need to go out there and meet 100 people. But if you make 3 meaningful relationships and people that you constantly checking in and you talking to and you go and get a cup of coffee with, like, you have to start building those relationships early in advance. And a lot of times, things always come around. I always say, like, it's just, that's how life works. Funny story, like, how I used to watch Saved by the Bell all the time and like, I was just obsessed with it. And especially Mario Lopez, I was like, oh my gosh, he's, kind of God. And then I moved to the United States years later, I go skydiving with him. And I was just like, how crazy the life works that, you think
He's
about
always
one
down
thing.
here in Temecula.
Yeah. So we did a skydiving event. That was years ago, but it was in Murrieta, I think. Is it Murrieta or Lake Elsinore?
Lake Elsinore.
Yeah. That's where they have the skydiving. But, and that's just kind of a funny example, but it works the same in the military. Like if you transitioning out and you burn bridges with somebody that maybe you at your command, like in about 5 years, some of those people are going to be out and they might be in the positions that, you want to get into, or those are the people that are going to help you up. So you always have to be kind to people. You always have to, make those connections and put a little bit of effort to go and meet and grab coffee and check in with somebody, because you never know where you're going to be in 5 years. You never know where you're going to be in a year. So very important.
I appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank
I wish
you
you all the best going forward.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me here. Thanks.
As always, thank you for listening or watching the episode. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out on social media or send me an email. The links are all in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you're not already, please follow the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube. And if you would, please leave me a rating. Ratings do two things. You can tell me what I need to fix or improve, and the more ratings also gets the podcast recommended to more people. Another ask, please share the podcast with anyone you think could benefit from and enjoy it. And last, don't forget, sign up for the newsletter.